What's going on, my reefing fam? March here. This is Fragbox TV. Matt is eating, so you know it's time to do a video. What up, Mr. Diggs? Welcome back to the channel. Shooting from lovely Toronto, Ontario. Fabio, what are you doing?
Bringing some beautiful A-cans upstairs.
Fabio is our new resident frag master. If you bought a frag here recently, he probably made it. He's actually Fragbox's first employee and personal friend from high school. Right now he's moving some A-cans, and that's a good segue into today's video because we're going to be talking about corals and corals of 2022 and corals into the future and everything to do with corals. Yesterday's video was sort of a wrap-up on hardware, and today is going to be more about the lovely coral aspect of it. Okay, what's new for corals this year?
Show them this one.
Oh, which one? The Miyagi Tort?
That one's this one right here. I like it.
Tortusa.
This was like the king, like the crown jewel of your little colony.
It is still the king. I think for, at least for us here in the store, or for me, I'm continuing to make this move towards soft coral. Let me clean the glass on this tank first. Soft coral, soft coral, soft coral. Why? Why soft coral? I was never really into it. Before I couldn't care less about leathers and Kenya trees and sinularias and all this stuff, but in the last year it's really sort of, well, at least taken over in this tank, and it's what I'm on the hunt for. And I'll tell you why. I've always been into zoas, so zoanthids for me are always going to have a special place in my heart. I love collecting them and growing them and all the different colors. It's probably one of the most popular corals out of any of them when we look at species of corals. But you can go out and find really nice zoas, and you can spend a lot of money on designer and collector heads, and they're out there. And the same goes for Acropora. Bear with me, I'm going to get to my point about leather. I'm going to loop it around. Watch how I do it. So, acros, tricky to keep, beautiful corals. I have some nice ones in here. If you want some nice acro today here in Toronto, you can go out with your credit card, you can come here to the store or go out to other stores, and you can find really nice, colorful, expensive acros. In the United States, you have such a selection. There's so many vendors. You're going to find them. It's not that hard. You really just need a wallet, and you got to know how to use the pin on your credit card. Now, leather corals. You want to find unusual and cool and rare leathers and softies, kind of like this blue Kenya tree. Yes, it is blue. Here's a Kenya tree here, which is not blue, and this is blue. It's not going to happen. You have to work for it. It's tricky. They're not as coveted in the hobby, so it's become difficult and challenging and fun to try and collect different types of leathers. They're not the most colorful, and they don't really stand out when you take just one piece, for example, like this. But when you fill up a tank with a bunch of them and you stand back and you have that sort of picture, kind of like I'm showing you here in this tank, that's when I think they become really impressive. So for me, it's the challenge of finding different leathers, because there's not a ton of variation. Sometimes you'll get a polyp that's a little bit longer or a little bit shorter, like our yellow Fiji leathers here. This one shows off really cool under blue light. It looks like nothing here. So it's a little bit tricky. Check out this one, front and center. That one's really nice. And I just found this one back here where the polyps are a little bit closed. It's kind of like a blue polyp on a beigey base. So I think for that reason, it's challenging to find them. And I'm having a lot of fun just kind of exploring this whole new world of soft corals that I really glossed over for a long time. And I feel like there's a lot of hobbyists that are also looking for these. It's sort of the next chapter for us, and I really, really like how easy they are to grow. Like, you can't kill these things. You cannot kill a leather coral. You have to be going out of your way to try and kill one. It's not easy. If your water is clean, like it is in this tank, they're gonna thrive. If your water is dirty, they're gonna thrive. If you put them under low light, they're fine. Or high light, where you would expect to find acroporas, also fine. Check it out. Low flow, high flow, they're very forgiving corals. They're beautiful. This is becoming basically just a video about how much March loves leather corals. I think in this store, this is probably, Matt, is this not the most asked about coral?
Oh yeah.
Yes, 100%. This is the most asked about coral here in our store. We have thousands of frags on hand at any time. This is the one people ask for a piece more than anything else, is this cabbage coral, because it's just different and you don't usually see such a vibrant and luminescent color on a coral like this. Okay, for my favorite coral of this year, I'm gonna give it to this one here. This is again sort of a new one for me that I'm kind of getting into. It is this. If you watched our Christmas special, we had a little bit of trivia. I think somebody eventually got it right. And before I go and yell out the name in the next 10 to 30 seconds, maybe you want to try guessing it. What's that coral? It's kind of like Dora the Explorer. It's as if a plate coral, like a Capricornus over here, if you don't know what I'm talking about. This is a plating Montipora. There's one. And there's another, and they call them plating because they grow like large dinner plates and they grow out into open waters. It's as if a plating coral and a LPS coral, like maybe a Duncan, see that one? Imagine they had a baby. So imagine Duncan somehow, or no, not somehow, Duncan, being the gentleman that he is, picks up a bottle of wine and some flowers and takes out Mrs. Montipora here on a nice date, and then they end up going back to his place for a fun time. This is what they would make. Duncan plus Monty. Is that not what it looks like?
Yeah,
it is, yeah. And the name of the coral is pagoda, or cup coral. This one is quite small, but I just love anything polypy for me. Anything with movement, really, it's what I'm about when it comes to corals, like hammers, torches, and frog spawns. Euphyllias, very, very popular in the hobby. Actually, I have one more pagoda before I move on to talking about Euphyllias. It's right kind of in there. You see it? Green with brown polyps. Again, not a lot of variation. These are really 2 or 3 colors that we find. But it's just, I don't know. For me, it's captivating. And I know it sounds kind of boring, but when you've been doing this for so long and you've seen so many corals, it's the weird stuff that gets you excited. It's not the rainbows and ultras and the chalices. It's not those. It's just the uncommon. Sort of like this hammer here. Torches have become so popular in the past, I want to say, I don't know, pre-COVID, 4 or 5 years, the prices have gone up. Corals kind of go in fades, or not fades, in fads. That's the word I'm looking for. And sometimes they're popular and sometimes they're less popular. Some of them hold true all the time, like zoanthids. Always been popular. I think they always will be. Mushrooms. I'm seeing a lot of popularity with mushrooms and prices that I wouldn't have believed even just a few years ago, like $100 to $300 a leaf. It didn't happen. You weren't buying mushrooms per leaf. Actually, the fact that we buy anything per polyp or per leaf is unusual if you've been in the hobby for a long time. So I wanted to do a video just on coral pricing, but I can give you a little glimpse of what it was going to be. So here in Toronto, let's say 15 to 20 years ago, if you were to buy a coral, there were no frags. There wasn't even the word frag. If something came off, we would just call them pieces. I'll trade you a piece of this. The word frag and fragment wasn't commonly used. But everything was sold for $40. That was the standard going coral accepted negotiated rate for a large piece of coral, and it didn't matter what it was. It could be a huge colony of torch or zoas. That's just what it was. A piece of coral was $40. Those days are so long gone. $40 I think now is the standard price for a frag. Okay, in terms of other popular corals that I saw this year, at least importing and availability from overseas, Acropora flower pots. I'm seeing colors I didn't know existed, but I guess as the demand increases, there's also an increased pressure or demand on suppliers from overseas like Indonesia to collect and grow and cultivate all these fun, beautiful, different colors of Gani. But I don't ever remember Gani being anything but green when I started out, and now there's any sort of color combination, you can find it. It's out there, and I think they're getting easier to keep. I don't know if we're feeding better or what it is, but you know, they had such a, I was having a conversation with the customer the other day on how they were really regarded as a tough, like an impossible coral, at one point in time, and that's just not the case anymore. Oh, some more cool leathers. Hello, hello. I'll try not to talk about leathers too much more in this video. I'll just show you some cool cultured ones that are all ready to go. These are unusual because they're white, long tentacle white. And typically white in a coral, bad, no good. You don't buy white corals because they're bleaching or dying, but not in this case. This one, they are actually A-okay. Some Dr. Fuzzies over here. I think coral prices are only gonna go up with time. Nothing in this hobby is going to get any less expensive, kind of like with everything out there. What gets cheaper over time? The hobby is only going to get more expensive as demand increases and availability decreases, and I think we're going to continue to see cultured stuff. You know, in the United States, a ton of it is grown there, which is awesome. We are nowhere near that level here in Canada. There's 1 or 2 coral farms that don't even come close to what I saw at Worldwide Corals or Top Shelf Aquatics, because we don't have the market or the population. It's just a completely different animal. This is very nice. I know they're just green, but some green calithoas. The other big coral this year would be Blastomusa. Boom, boom. So many cool variations and colors and patterns, and again, just all around super popular coral that wasn't getting any attention, I would say up until pretty recently. Like Scolies and acans and elegance corals, open brains, always popular, but Blastos in the last, I want to say 2 years, exploded with popularity. And what I'm seeing a lot from suppliers is combination pieces. So that's something we didn't really see before. If you bought a coral, it would just be one, but now it's not uncommon to see like a bunch of zoas coming from a supplier, glued to a rock like this, or a bunch of soft coral, or even 2 to 3 different types of acan or flower pot or blastos, all grown and combined on one single piece. So we're seeing a lot more like rainbow pieces and pieces that are combined, stuff that you would typically do at home. You'd go out and collect different zoas or pieces and glue them together. They're already coming prefabricated, doesn't seem like the right word, but they're already coming completed. Like, I think we're going to continue to see pieces get smaller and smaller, and it's maybe in reflection to how our tanks are getting smaller. And you know, this is one of our most popular tanks here in the store, the 12 gallon, the Reef Casa Studio 12. Frags are really what you want to add here because you're going to run out of space quick. Man, Tia has just done a fantastic job with these mushrooms. Oh, and it's fun to collect different small pieces. If you were to buy, let's say, a big rock of mushrooms and stick it there, that's going to take up, you know, maybe a fourth or fifth of your rock work. So it makes sense with smaller tanks, obviously, to buy smaller frags. Oh, look at this little rainford goby. I haven't looked at this tank in a while. And these beautiful little conches are doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. If you're suffering from a sand bed that is dirty, look for these. These are little strawberry conches, or big ones. You can also find spider conches, zebra conches. There's 4 or 5 different ones we carry, or check out with your local retailer, but they basically just continuously clean your set. Okay, that's a sidetrack. The video is about corals, and I get distracted very, very easily. What else? What else can I tell you about corals? Chalices, always been popular, continue to be popular. We spoke about mushrooms. Maybe that's it about corals. Anemones. Let's talk about anemones just for a sec, even though they're not really corals. Prices of these things, when I come to some of the trade shows in the States, it's just, wow. I cannot believe that people actually pay these prices. Very, very expensive. This one's pretty cool, actually. We have right in here right now, the Nexus. Speaking about trade shows, I'm going to come down to Reefapalooza Orlando. So I got Indo planned for the end of January. And then Reefapalooza Orlando, so that'd be cool if anyone's going to be there. It'd be nice to meet. I'll be there for the weekend, and I will maybe post up on the channel some of the other shows that we're going to visit. And that's it. I think we'll wrap up this video. If you guys have any questions about anything I spoke about today, comment below or shoot us an email, fragboxcorals@gmail.com. This Pico needs a little cleaning on the glass, but it's looking nice. And that's it. Like always, this has been a pleasure, and thank you very much for watching. If you like the content, or bulldogs, or things related to reef tanks and Neptune, give us one of these, or subscribe, ding ding, I think on the bottom right, there's a little bell, and it'll notify you every time we do a video like this. And that's it, guys. We will see you back here on the channel very soon, I'm sure. Have a very nice day, or afternoon, Or maybe it's the morning and you're just starting out. Wherever you're watching from, goodbye for now, and never stop reefing.